All right. The best argument for the simulation is the nature of consciousness and the absence of free will. Wait till you hear this research. There is nothing more human than our consciousness, than our sense of identity, our free will. Many religions teach that this is a gift from God. But if we don't have it, what does that say about our complete understanding of reality? Welcome to Simulation Savant. This is a place where we explore the simulation hypothesis. We take it very seriously, and our goal is to give you tools, if in fact we live in a sim, to live better. Unfortunately, that's going to mean thinking differently and living differently than we do now, because the world that we live in now, if it's a sim, is very different than the construct that we've created for thousands of years. So let's dive into this research, right? Consciousness. This is the notion, the prevailing notion, is that the complex nature of your brain, the neurons, the neurochemicals, that generates thought, that generates love, that generates art, that generates poetry, that generates incredible emotion, right? There is no evidence for this. There is no mechanism for this. We see nothing else in nature function like this. Neurons are just simply inert cells. Neurochemicals are just like any other chemicals in nature. How is this combination in the brain able to create the most human of properties? That's the major question. It looks like this idea that the brain causes thought is really incomplete. Like I said, there's no evidence for the mechanism. There's no evidence for how this would happen. It appears that it's really a lot more of a correlation than it is causation. So we've developed very sophisticated brain scans now. And when we do those brain scans, we do see areas of the brain light up when certain thoughts occur, etc., when certain reactions or emotions occur. But the issue is that a correlation or is that a causation? Now, we've been debating this free will thing for thousands of years. And the prevailing notion has been among philosophers that we don't have free will. Well, now science has provided us some pretty astonishing answers. And you're not going to like what you hear. Let's take the first one. So imagine you're in an fMRI machine. This is a massive machine that you would lie down in, and it's designed to measure your brain states in real time. And there'll be a researcher over to the side watching a computer, and that computer will have software running it and will light up certain areas of your brain as you react to different questions or different prompts. And so the first test was done by researchers at Max Planck, one of the leading quantum physics labs in the world. And they wanted to measure how long it took from the time I think to move my hand to the time that my hand actually moves. That's going to be milliseconds, right? Well, they were astonished at what they found. My hand moves, or which hand decides to move before I think it. I know that sounds nuts. But what they found is that there's an unconscious operating system in the brain that decides which hand I'm to move 7 to 10 seconds before I make that decision. So they test the setup to measure from the moment when I made the decision to say move my right hand, and on the computer screen, 7 to 10 seconds before I made that decision, the brain area designed to create the thought and the movement of my right hand lights up 7 to 10 seconds prior to the time where I think I made the decision. 7 to 10 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, is a very long time. Now, what is this unconscious operating system? Well, the researchers attributed your brain making this decision to this unconscious operating system that's completely outside of your awareness. In fact, it also does a double trick. It not only decides which hand you're going to move before you think you decided, it also does a temporal trick. And it leads you to believe that your hand is moving at the moment when you are deciding to move it, not the 7 to 10 second delay, right? That would be very odd if I decided to move my right hand and I had to wait 7 to 10 seconds to see it actually happen. So what happens is this whole process is completely outside of our awareness. This is astonishing. I hope I'm explaining this well enough that you are sufficiently astonished. And this research has been replicated and published in peer-reviewed journals. So there was a lot of controversy around this test, okay? And so they decided, and the argument was that it was measuring reflex because this was a physical action. There was a brain reflex delay. No one understands what that is either, but that's what the critics were arguing. So the same researchers developed a test that would measure an abstract thought, not a movement thought. And here they constructed a math problem that could be solved in 2 different ways, and you pick which one, A or B. Now, when they measured the brain states in the fMRI again, they found that there was a 4-second delay, that this unconscious operating system decided which math solution or which path towards the math solution you were going to choose 4 seconds before you actually did. This is incredible. This removes the physical movement reflex argument, which is why they designed the test that way. Now, what is this unconscious operating system? Well, we don't know, right? I mean, even, Freud understood this subconscious and kind of gives us our first true understanding, theoretical understanding of the subconscious, at the turn of the last century. That's still very controversial. But what we do know is that you do not set your identity. You do not have a true sense of self until you're 7 years old. So for your first 7 years of your life, you're just filling up this operating system. You're just filling up this unconscious or this subconscious with the things that you've learned from family, culture, whatever religion you've been introduced to, gender, what area of the world you live in, et cetera, et cetera. And this is happening completely outside of your awareness. At 2 years old, you don't say to yourself, I don't really like this idea that mom and dad believe, I'm going to reject that. You simply are filled up. And it's completely outside of your awareness. It's completely outside of any judgment or critical analysis by you. Now, where do we get the 7 years? Well, the Catholic Church, interestingly, has argued that there's no sense of self till age 7 for many centuries. And modern psychology has confirmed that. In fact, in the United States, you can murder somebody at age 6 and you cannot be charged for that crime because you're not a fully sentient human being under the law until age 7. And there we have this programming going on in our mind, outside of our awareness, that then rules over all sorts of things that we're doing. Perhaps even which hand to move, perhaps how to solve a math problem. So there's more research that's been done. Another study was done under the same setting, fMRI machine, and there you were shown 2 different beautiful pictures. So this was measuring visualization. And you had to choose which one to recall. And they measured the time at which you made that decision. And there they found there was an 11-second delay. Your brain made the decision of what picture was preferred to recall 11 seconds before you did. This may explain trauma. This may explain craziness. This may explain all sorts of, behaviors of humans that we don't understand. But the problem is we don't understand what's going on, right? I mean, what is doing this and how? An unconscious operating system sounds good. We've never identified that in the brain. And so what's going on? I think the better argument, and I think at some point we're going to discover, and this is complete speculation, I think the brain is actually a receiver. And our brain is receiving thought the same way that Wi-Fi works. And that Wi-Fi is the programming that then creates the visual program, the same as our phone, our TV, our video games. That's conjecture. But to argue that this mysterious unconscious operating system is somehow biological, it doesn't add up. We have no evidence for what this is or how it works. But we have proof that it's there, and we have proof that you aren't making the decisions you think you are. Think about the implications of this. One final piece of research for you. This comes from the HeartMath people. Fascinating. If you find this next study interesting, Google HeartMath. They have many books and techniques, etc., surrounding the intelligence of the heart. It is perceived by them that the heart actually thinks. Now, there are neurons in the heart. Why? No one knows. If neurons are very specific biological creations in the brain designed for thought, what would they be doing in the brain? They're also in your gut, by the way. So what would they be doing in these places? It doesn't make sense. But listen to this research. You are watching a computer screen and you are wired up so that your heart response is measured very, very carefully through many different pathways, right? Blood pressure, heart rate, etc., with very sensitive equipment. And you're shown either a really beautiful picture, a baby playing in green grass, a butterfly, or you're shown horrific pictures like an automobile accident or a dead body. And of course, your body is going to react to these images, right? That's the whole point of cinema. That's the whole point of horror movies. So they're going to measure that response to the beautiful picture and the horrible picture and create a baseline. Then those images are going to be randomized very slowly, and they're going to come up on the screen, and they're measuring your heart response. And here they found 7 seconds before the picture is displayed on the computer screen, your heart knows whether it's going to be horrible or beautiful. 7 seconds. Your heart appears not only to be thinking, but it also appears to be predicting the future. Unbelievable, unexplained. Except it appears that the heart may have a lot more to do with consciousness than we thought. And that again takes away from the prevailing theory that the brain just generates thought, even though we have no mechanism for that. How is the heart generating thought? How is the heart anticipating stimuli, anticipating emotional reaction? Again, if you're paying attention, this should blow up your kind of prevailing idea of yourself, the world you live in, other people, etc. And so all this programming going on, this unconscious operating system, this heart thinking, etc., that leads us directly to the argument for the simulation. The simulation isn't real. What these tests tell us is that our understanding of humanness, our understanding of free will, our understanding of what makes us unique and different is contrived. That it's operating on some level that we're not even aware of, and it may even be being manipulated if in fact the brain and heart are receivers, that neurons are receivers. Imagine that. This will all work like Wi-Fi, like a very sophisticated computer program. And that is the argument of the simulation. If we don't have free will, and if our human experience is nothing like we think it is, that sets us up to imagine that things are not what they seem, that this what we think is real simply isn't. That can be very disturbing. It's been disturbing for me. This isn't an easy conclusion to come to. The problem with the simulation theory is it's the only theory, and I mean that sincerely, the only theory that takes everything, science, religion, philosophy, spirituality, etc., lumps it all together and comes to a conclusion. The sim explains all phenomena, even aberrational phenomena like near-death experiences, or the idea of the observer effect, where if I'm looking at an electron, it's going to alter its behavior. It knows when it's being watched and decides to alter its behavior. That makes zero sense. There's no nervous system, no neurons in an electron, right? And so all this crazy aberrational stuff that can't be explained. And so science just typically says, we'll just leave that alone. We'll figure that out later. That's silly. That's ridiculous. Anybody who studies that's a nutcase. But leaving things unexplained is the antithesis of scientific thinking. It's the antithesis of critical thinking. The absence of free will and the absence of a human understanding of consciousness leads us directly to simulation theory. Hey, message me down below what you think about this. If you want links to any of these studies, I can send them to you. Chew on this. It's profound. It's a direct attack on our everyday understanding of reality. As always, subscribe and like. I need you. See you next time.